Okay, now we're going. So Bodhidharma, he's one of many. He's quite an odd character. So, for those of you who don't know the story, Bodhidharma was an Indian monk from southern India, and his master was a person called Hanyatara. Well, of course, that's the Japanese pronunciation. Those are the names I know the best. But his master found him when he was the son of a prince or son of a king. So he was a prince and took him as a disciple, or rather, probably Bodhidharma asked to be his disciple. And he spent many years practicing with his master before his master said, "Ah, you are now a complete master yourself. And now you should go to China and teach this, and teach all the things that we have practiced together." And so his master sent him from southern India to China. And the route that he took was by boat, as the legend goes. And so he visited a bunch of different little spots along the Indian coast and the Malay Peninsula, which covered Thailand and Malaysia and Indonesia and Vietnam, even just as he went all the way around until he got to the southern part of China. Even until today, there are many sort of culturally embedded impressions of Bodhidharma, because by all accounts, he was quite an eccentric, wild man. And there are some descriptions of him being a red-headed, blue-eyed person, which is quite odd if you imagine somebody coming from southern India.
Hmm.
Um, and so he got to China because he was already a master and already had quite a reputation. His reputation preceded him. So at some point after he had arrived in China, he was offered a meeting by an emperor, that current dynasty. That person's name was Wu, and Wu had commissioned a lot of temples and monasteries and the ordination of many thousands of monks, because at that time it was a politically favorable looking thing to commission people doing good stuff. So, because they were also doing lots of bad things, just like they do today in politics. But they also had this idea of entrepreneurialism. So he spent a bunch of money to commission all these good things. And when Bodhidharma came, having heard of much of his reputation, Wu asked Bodhidharma, "Oh, look at all these great things that I have built, all these monks that I've commissioned and supported their ordination, buying their robes and all this stuff." And he said, "So what merit is in all that I have commissioned and done, supported?" And Bodhidharma, probably speaking limited Chinese at that point, because that's an important thing to remember. He wasn't Chinese. He was an immigrant. And he probably spoke kind of broken Chinese and goes, "No merit," to Wu. And Wu, being the emperor of a great kingdom, was pretty notorious for being swift in his retribution. Typically, if you said something of offense, that would be off with your head pretty quick, no hesitation. So the people who witnessed this thing and Wu himself were quite no merit in all that I have done, and being quite offended, Wu says to him, "Who is it that thus stands before me?" And Bodhidharma goes, "I have no idea," and turns around and walks away. And that's sort of the beginning of Bodhidharma being a mysterious, enigmatic character. He picked up, lots of people were influenced by things that he said. He wrote a few things that are left to us that are purported to have been his teachings. But, and he had three students, two of them kind of early on when he was wandering around for a while. And they sort of went off and went their own ways. And then the last one is the one who sort of stuck, and that ended up being the Dharma heir, the sort of transmitted next master after Bodhidharma. So after Bodhidharma left Emperor Wu's palace, he wandered around China doing enigmatic things and making people scratch their heads. And then he settled in a cave, as the legend says, and sat facing the wall in the cave for 9 more years. He was already a master. He was already given the mind seal of Buddha Dharma, and yet he sat 9 more years. The simple inspiration we can take from Bodhidharma is that even at the point that you understand or come to some understanding of the great matter of birth and death and the sort of sounds strange to say it, but it sounds supremacy of zazen, of simply just sitting, then even at that point, it's a great mistake to dispense with practice. And so his example serves to remind us that even if you think you're enlightened, if you're not sitting and doing the thing, then you've missed the point entirely. And indeed, there's another fun legend about him, which, if you look at his eyeballs, um, they're very round and open. And if you've ever seen those round Daruma dolls that are famous, like if you go in a Japanese restaurant, you probably see them, or like see them in other places in Japanese art where they have big round eyes. And the story is, if you buy one at a temple, or shrines also sell them, which is I find very strange, but whatever. They're kind of round things that you can only see the face, and they have no pupils in the eyeball. So you paint one in when you set an aspiration. Oh, I'm going to achieve this goal. I hope that my restaurant succeeds, or I hope that my business is successful, or my children do well in school, or what have you. And then when you have sort of achieved your goal, you paint in the other eye. So the first eye is setting an aspiration, and the second one is achieving the aspiration. And once you've achieved that aspiration, you take that Dharma doll. They're usually made of paper mache. You take it back to the place where you purchased it, the shrine or the temple, and then they burn it at New Year's in a special ceremony that happens right at midnight. So they're, in Japan, kind of smells like smoke, not just because of incense, but because people are burning these Dharma dolls and other things on New Year's Day. And that is one of the ways that Bodhidharma is left even now, at least in Japanese culture. And many Japanese people don't even know that Dharma doll is him. And one of the interesting things about the construction of those Dharma dolls, which is also a metaphor for our practice, is that they wobble. You can push one over. Anytime you go to a place, if you can touch one, I beg you, just push it over and watch what happens. Because they have they usually are built with a lot more material at the bottom, and they wobble, and they sit back up. Yeah, the Dharma, he tumbles, but he always sits up. There's an epithet, a saying for Bodhidharma that is, fall down, fall down 7 times, get up 8, kind of thing. We have something similar in English. I'm mincing it because I can't remember, but the sentiment is that no matter how many times you fall down, you can always get back up. Bodhidharma, one of the fun Chinese legends, is that in his practice, he was falling asleep, which is also the round Dharma dolls going like this, and never actually falling over, but wobbling. And he got angry, so he peels off his eyelids and casts them to the ground. And where his eyelids fell on the ground, of course, this is hagiographical territory. This is the Chinese legend. Where his eyelids fell, tea bushes sprouted. Because of course, a tea leaf is quite a bit like an eyelid, and if you consume the tea leaves, you get some energy, and you're not so sleepy anymore, right? Um, of course, that doesn't line up at all with, much less science or anything like this. But the legend and the sort of pointing us at cherishing our wakefulness, treasuring our wakefulness, is a really beautiful part of the history and legend of Bodhidharma. Indeed, he's kind of got the most baller name of maybe all the Buddhist monks. Well, He's on the short list of really cool Buddhist monk names. There was another guy called Nagarjuna who has a really, really cool name when you understand the meaning. But um, bodhidharma literally means like wise dharma. Like what? Whose master thinks that's a good name for their student? They've got to be something special to get a crazy name like that. But really, the reason for his round eyes, which I'm circling around here, is that he wasn't Chinese. And although there was trade into China on the Silk Road for a long, long, long time, you can imagine he was hanging out in the mountains in a very remote place. In fact, the place where he sat in a cave eventually became what is now the Shaolin Temple, the very famous place that's attributed to have been the birthplace of Kung Fu. The Bruce Lee's 1973 Enter the Dragon started. It was supposed to be set in the Shaolin Temple, and of course, there's a beautiful Jet Li movie all about Shaolin. It has its own fame. Some people believe that maybe Bodhidharma, having been a prince, was an expert in an Indian martial art. I think it was called Kali, and and he was certainly also versed in yoga, and he taught something like that to the monks that were practicing. Buddhism already existed in China, but what Bodhidharma brought, as at the behest of his master Hanyatara, was Zen. So he's also considered the father of Zen as we know it.
Hmm.
And his whole life is a smorgasbord of zany things happening. Like people could almost think that they were like miracles happening. I think he was just weird and and a bit like a fox and would just do stuff that people could not expect. Indeed, he's one example of Zen monks, particularly Zen monks, being really, really eccentric and outside the normal bounds of what one might expect of a Buddhist monk or even a Buddhist person. Indeed, this of course this isn't a real. This is a facsimile, a reproduction of a painting. Very, very, very famous piece of art, done by the disciple of another much later very famous Zen monk called Ikkyu. And Ikkyu was a not not the Soto Zen tradition that I'm ordained in, but the Rinzai tradition, which was sort of like the samurai Zen, slightly different, but intimately connected. Indeed, the master of the Soto tradition was a Rinzai master first. They started around the same time in Japan. But the master who inspired this painting, Ikkyu, was also really eccentric and did stuff that was way outside the bounds of the rules of being a Buddhist. So like don't eat meat, don't you're supposed to be celibate, you're not supposed to cuss, you're not supposed to deal with business people, you're not supposed to drink, and he did all that stuff. And he was insistent on going in these clothes, just like this, to brothels and bars, and he was really good at poetry. He was really good at art, and he was also really good at cussing and being kind of a wild person. Indeed, Bodhidharma was probably something like that too, considering he came from India, where they had 300 and something rules for how to comport yourself as a monk, and yet his whole the core of his teachings, which we hold as the source, the root of Zen is a special transmission outside of the scriptures. That what we get from just doing zazen is very much alluded to in all aspects of all of the sutras transmitted to us from the Buddha, but uh, that what we can attain in the Buddha way is not limited to what is written down or transmitted to us by word of mouth through the hand me down of the teachings of the Buddha. That everything is intimately present, all pervading, and therefore imminently accessible to all people. And somewhat in line with being somewhat of a heretic or an eccentric person, as well, Bodhidharma was, and EQ, the inspiration for this painting, and and a number of other wonderful masters, we too can explore how to be more open and authentic to ourselves, uh, regardless of the sort of the black and white rules. Rules are like black and white, right? Keep the rule or break the rule. And then you find yourself, you're either doing it or not doing it. You judge yourself good or bad based on whether or not you're applying these things. And that's just a black and white thing. But actually the whole system of being alive, being a living thing, has very little to do with just black and white. It's not so good to use that as a slippery slope to say that, well, I'm going to do bad things and that's okay. That doesn't quite add up. But at the same time, um, you can't see your true colors in black and white. And if Zazen is about studying the self and forgetting the self, then how can you study yourself if you're only looking in terms of black and white? Questions? Anything? Want to hear more crazy Buddhist stories about Bodhidharma?
Yes.
Yes.
Always.
Okay. A really fun one is, which is quite a bit of a parallel to another famous religious historical figure, which when you get it, do chime in when you realize where this goes. So at the point of Bodhidharma's death, he had lived in China for a long time and perhaps got into his 80s or what have you. And he didn't have very many, like I said, he only had 3 students. His last student became his Dharma heir and left, as one does. When your master gives you mastery, you wander off, you do your own thing, like he did from his master in India. And so he died. He was in the company of lots of other monks because he had gained quite a lot of respect by that time. And so they performed a funeral, and then they put his body in a tomb. And sometime later, there was a kind of a political official who had known of him and consulted with him at different times, who saw him walking down the road, carrying like he had a stick flung over his shoulder, and he had one shoe hanging on it as though it were broken. And he was, he's walking barefoot because mostly he probably walked barefoot because he was like an Indian monk, and Indian monks typically walk barefoot, whatever. But he had one shoe on this stick. And the political official, having not heard of his death, said, "Oh, Bodhidharma, where are you going?" And Bodhidharma says, "I am returning to India." And didn't continue the conversation, just kept walking away. And sometime later, this official comes into the company of these monks who lived near, who were associated with Bodhidharma near the end of his life. And he said, "Oh, I saw Bodhidharma the other day." And they were like, "No, you didn't." And he's like, "Yeah, yes, I did. He was carrying one shoe, and he said he was going back to India." And the people are like, "No, we put him in this tomb over here." And he says, "No, he was alive." And then they go and they open the tomb, and all that was left was one shoe. Sounds a little bit like who?
Little Jesus.
A little Jesus, right?
Yeah.
It really, is it true? Is it just a legend? That part's all ostensibly completely lost. But it's also ostensibly entirely not the point. Another fun fact about Bodhidharma, at some point I'll make another. I'm working on another video to talk about his student, the one who became his Dharma heir. His name was Huika, or Taiso Eka, as we call him in Japanese. And when he went to ask Bodhidharma, "I would like to be your student," and he was already a monk, and he was asking because he knew that he wanted to practice with this great master. He saw a master continuing to practice, and he really respected that. So he goes in the snow in the mountains in China, and he walks in the cave, and he says, Bodhidharma, please accept me as a student. And Bodhidharma turns from the cave and says, no, and get out, and shoos him away. And so Eka leaves, and he comes back again. He goes, Bodhidharma, please, I would like to be your student. I would like to practice with you. And Bodhidharma says, you do not understand non-attachment. Get out. And so Eka leaves, and he comes back again. And on the third time, he comes and says, Bodhidharma, I would like to be your student. I have come to understand non-attachment. And Bodhidharma turns and looks at him. And Eka pulls out a knife. And he cuts off his hand. And he takes his hand like this. And he presents it to Bodhidharma. And he says, look, I'm not even attached to my own body. And then, because he can't do this, because he only has one hand, Shaolin monks bow with one hand, if you've ever noticed that in those kung fu movies. It's a reference to Bodhidharma's Dharma air, Eka, Huiko, and then Bodhidharma was like, seems like you understand non-attachment, and took him as a student. That's the legend. What's possibly more true is that he was injured in some sort of by some bandits or what have you, or some altercation on the road, and perhaps he had a severed limb, a finger or something, or that his hand was really damaged, and he showed that to Bodhidharma and demonstrated that he was not thrown off. His equanimity was nonplussed, unperturbed by even the fact that he was maimed, and that by that injury his functional life would be changed. And indeed, Bodhidharma was probably by that point had already given teachings about Zen is not being moved by whatever is outside, nor what is on the inside of oneself. And that means no matter what you experience, feel, see, hear, taste, touch, smell, or emote, that you are unmoving. And it doesn't mean that you don't, for example, feel anger or feel passion. It just means that you don't move. The discipline is the body. The mind is just a small piece of the body. And demonstrating that through some traumatic physical injury, that, oh no, it's actually, I'm okay with this. Bodhidharma recognized something good in Eka and took him as a student, and thus began the transmission of the Buddha Dharma from Bodhidharma, which from that point is like, in the great tree of Buddhism, that branch where the root is Bodhidharma, all of the other schools of Zen arose from that. But we all treasure that transmission as the source point of all Zen teachings. So, in that way, I wonder if any of you have any reflections on not being moved by whatever you hear, smell, taste, touch, hear, smell, taste, touch, see, or feel. I mean, emotionally feel. Have you noticed yourself being able to not be so easily thrown off by having engaged practice?
Yeah, certainly.
Yeah. Would you be willing to share a concrete experience, Connor?
Um, let's see. I mean, I think just being moved to anger or anxiety about things, like there's much more space in between, what is obviously myself and what is my emotions.
Mm.
Um, like
Mm.
dealing with, yeah. I think of an specific example. It was just kind of like overarching.
Mm.
Um, like anything I'm dealing with, it's been much easier to uh separate some out of that emotion. Be like, the calm midst of the storm of thoughts or what's going on in physical life.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll say anytime I'm put on the spot, my brain stops working. So I'll let you know if I actually have a concrete example.
Yeah. That's fine. It's normal. Steve, you've been practicing and studying Buddhism for quite some time, I think.
Yes, it's true. Around 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, yeah, first of all, I want to um, say another story about Bodhidharma because
Oh,
when
yeah.
he was talking to Empire Wu, and conversation was, I built so many temples, I did so much for Buddhism, and
Mhm.
Bodhidharma said, no holiness.
Yeah.
And Empire Wu was really upset and asking, who are you? And Bodhidharma answered, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this story, it's very kind of like stick in my head for a long time because it's true. Because on even different situation with different people. On
Mhm.
the work, I one person. Home, I another person. I talk to my grandkids, a totally different person.
Mhm.
So, and who I am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and of course, sometimes I able to confirm some nice, good experience. And when you in difficult situation, uh, like even death of my father,
Mhm.
yes, it's I was so touched because kind of he was very friendly, kind of like my friend almost, and we share a lot of stuff, and same time, yes, I have grief, but it's not kind of like grief. I pull my hair, or kind
Mhm.
of like it was very understandable.
Mhm.
It's
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
It's nobody guarantee gonna be live forever. So we all have expiration day, but when it's
Mhm.
come, we don't know. And so it's not was really throw away me. It's kind of like so I was be able to stay calm, and yeah, it was impressive. Very interesting feeling, by the way.
Mhm.
On the
Mhm.
middle of kind of like bad things, you're able to calm, found peace.
Yes. Yes. That is the heaviest and most significant of all of the uh, struggles, the most perturbing experience that we can have as living beings is grief, losing someone that we love. And that's a very profound place to see the Dharma just right there. If you have practice in your life at that moment, somehow our regard for uh, the part of life that we call death becomes something other than we have. It's like in Western societies, in a sort of Christian sense, we're not, it becomes a little bit warmer in a way. It looks colder because we're can be more indifferent in a way. It seems to other people we're not so losing our composure in our grief. But this too is it. And yeah, thank you for sharing that. Mhm. Anyone else?
What was the question again?
The question is, as you have uh, engaged practice, have you noticed yourself sit well, a good way to put it would be like Bodhidharma, the little dolls. Have you noticed yourself sitting back up in spite of being pushed around by your senses and your experiences emotionally?
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
I feel like the longer I've been sitting, the more grounded I feel like the baseline is. So if we're talking
Mhm.
about one of the Daruma dolls, it's like you've got extra weight in the bottom,
Mhm.
And it's like
Mm.
every month you add like another quarter or something in the bottom, and it gets a little bit heavier and harder to move. And when it does move, it comes back a little bit quicker without having to do anything.
Mhm.
So I've definitely started to notice like the kind of the automatic returning to like a greater level of groundedness.
Mm.
One thing I noticed actually the other day, it's getting pretty cold, compared to like the summer, and my bathroom isn't heated, and it's on like an external wall.
Mm.
So I noticed like whenever I get out of the shower, it's always really cold because I have the fan going and everything's sucking the air out. So I get stuff. Yeah, but I noticed that like I haven't really been resisting the cold. I just feel really cold,
Mhm.
which is kind of
Mhm.
interesting. So the feeling of being cold hasn't really changed, but there's not like as much of a resistance to it.
Yes. That's
Greg, I got idea for you. Just take cold shower. When you get out from shower, it's gonna be warm.
I, I'm not that hardcore yet. Maybe someday.
I support this, Steve. Very good idea. I
Yeah.
often in the monastery, often several times a week, I would take a cold shower, and it would annoy the other monks because my cold water was splashing on them because we all bathed together, and uh, and they're like, "Eshin, why are you taking a cold shower? That's insane!" And I'm because it wakes me up and my body gets hot afterwards. So yeah, I
In
support.
Rinzai, and it's very often practiced, by the way. They're
Yeah,
still
yeah.
under a waterfall, which one is
Mhm.
very cold,
Mm, mm.
and they still,
Yeah,
yeah, and I take cold shower every day. It's awesome.
it is awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
It does that moment just before it's going to you're going to have a strong physical reaction as soon as that cold water hits you, and going into it, especially when you feel like, no, I really want to be in warm water. That moment just before is the precious moment of deciding to be awake and endure. And so there's a great practice just before the cold water hits you. That's I really enjoy. You probably have that experience too, huh? Griselle, how are you?
I'm good. Um, I love these talks about the cold showers because I take them too. Um, for same reasons to wake up and it's I think for me it's a good analogy of like of what we were talking about, like kind of like that non-attachment. I'm starting to refer to it as like a healthy resistance, but it's like resistance to the opposite. Like like um oh, I don't want to shower, it's like that procrastination, that laziness. It's like resisting the urge to be lazy or to
Mhm.
conformist, and like going for the cold shower. um so so I think recently I've been paying more attention to like what is it that I'm healthily resisting when I'm decidedly being more proactive and not reacting to
Mhm.
like like whatever I'm resisting is what I want to automatically react as. So I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. Does anyone experience resistance to waking up in the morning?
Definitely.
When the alarm goes off, meep, 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 and your eyes aren't open yet, but your brain becomes awake, and you're like, I'm just gonna stay here for like just another minute. It's fine. And maybe you let the alarm go, or you reach up and you touch the button, and then you wake up and it's like 30 minutes later or an hour later. Anyone have that experience? Mm. it's an easy state to fall into if your time is flexible. But another version of you can emerge if you don't resist waking up. And I mean that like really concretely. Before you go to sleep, if you don't have a regular wake up time, because maybe you work late or something like this. If you're a musician, of course, you're working at all bloody hours of the night. But at the point that you set the alarm, you set the intention in yourself. I'm gonna wake up at this time. Even if I don't sleep well, I'm still going to get up at this time. I'm gonna make myself a cup of tea or coffee or what have you, or have a drink of water, and then demand of yourself like 10 minutes of zazen. Even if you're sleepy, even if you arrange your body, have a sip of something hot, and then you sit, and then you just go right to sleep. That's totally fine. Actually, the zazen is still happening. It's the intention of waking up from the start, which makes even if you're asleep during zazen, still valid. You have not failed. But that taking hold of yourself in your practice of living by starting at the very, very beginning. The alarm goes off. Open the covers, sit up, move your body a little bit. Not unlike when we finish zazen, we move our body just a little bit. Restore the flow of blood and energy in our body. And then get up and do the things you need. If you feel really tired and you're resistant, you're like, oh, I really can't get up. Everyone try this. Just take your hands and just rub your palms together until they get really hot. And then if you're wearing glasses, your glasses are going to be in your way. You might maybe if you're wearing glasses, take them off for a second. You're going to rub your hands together really hard, get them really hot, and then cover your eyes with your hot hands. And then open them. Sometimes that warmth, well, this is something that actually Master Dogen suggested, is that you rub your hands together really hard to get them hot, and then you cup them over your eyes, and then that heat sort of helps you wake up. It's like a stimulant. 800 years ago, it seemed brilliant, I guess. But it works at that moment when you're just like resisting. It's also the physicality of going, I need to get my hands hot. I'm going to wake up. And then, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get up. And maybe people often see monks and think, oh, y'all monks wake up really early in the morning. Well, yeah, because as soon as we wake up, we have work to do. Like literally 5 minutes after the bell rings for us to wake up, we have to be somewhere else doing something. And some of us are going into the zazendo to do the zazen, and some of us are going to begin cooking breakfast, and some of us are going to we have to put on our robes to go out to the big bell, because at a certain point during zazen the big bell has to be rung, and like so we have these jobs that we have to basically run to do. Indeed, the person who rings the bell to wake everyone up has to be up before everyone else, so that person doesn't have the luxury of sleeping in. They have to wake up and go put on the robes, tie the ropes, and then get the bell, and then wait for the right moment, and then they ring the bell, and then they run through the whole temple like full sprint to wake everyone up. It gives you a different control of yourself when you decide against your tiredness to be awake. Like bodhidharma. Be authentic. Don't be moved by your tiredness as well as your emotional states or anything like that. Show up. Get the job done. This is also Zen in a practical way.
It's very interesting point about hands rubbing. Usually Chan people do after the Zen, when it's your vision is kind of like blurring, they are rubbing and put, it's kind of help a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah.
Surprise, Zoto Zen people does not do after the Zen.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that recommendation is from a master, well, not Bodhidharma, but from Master Dogen, who is our founder of Soto Zen. I found it quite ironic that I did it one time in Eiheiji, and I swiftly was I got hit by the stick. They were like, "What are you doing?" Ouch! Don't do anything weird.
Come on, it's not pain.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
just
yeah.
sounds great, but
Yeah. But the in the Zazendo, it's funny. They don't speak. That's one of the 3 sacred, quiet places where there's no speech, unless somebody really messes up. And if some senior monk yells in the Zazendo, like one of maybe the second or third highest ranking monk in the monastery yells, it's serious. That happens sometimes, but usually there's this snap like this. And it's not, usually people snap like this, right? And it has a tone, but some monks can snap with this finger like this. And it makes this really deep, loud, I can't, I've never been able to get it right, but it makes this really loud, like pop kind of sound. And it's unique. And in the Zazendo, or in a quiet place, the toilet is another place where you get yelled at. If you're getting yelled at, it's this. Everyone hears this snap, and we turn toward the sound. And if that finger is pointed right at you, you immediately know, crap, I'm in it now. And you're gonna have to like sit on your knees on a hardwood floor like this for about an hour while you get yelled at and have to answer questions and like, why did you do this? Do you not understand how this is supposed to work? Oh, and yeah, all that training is to teach you not to be moved by the pain in your knees or in your shoulders because you've been doing this for an hour. It's all practice. It's all practice like this. It's not just insane, but part of our monastic training.
I've got a question.
Yes.
If that's okay. Okay. So, as lay people, we are not as regularly put into difficult situations like monks in a monastery where you just have to endure things because that's like the schedule you're following or the activity and kind of your life. So what would you say, or what would your guidance be to lay people who enjoy the comforts of lay life but also understand that experiencing discomfort is kind of a part of practice, and how do you not end up trying to make yourself miserable, justifying it as in like you're trying to deepen your practice?
Very good question, Greg. It's an easy answer. There is no difference between the programmed intentional suffering that one endures as a monk in a monastery and the discomfort that arises naturally in your daily lives. Simple example, ripe for the times, would be when you hang out with a family member who has different political beliefs than you. What do? It's the holiday season. You're gonna all sit around the table and joking, and your crazy uncle or your very differently leaning cousin or whatever is gonna say something, and it could be triggering of you. And that is the same as being in a monastery and getting yelled at for inane small details that you have made a mistake in. and you're uncomfortable. What's being challenged? who is being challenged there. And the first, probably, you can't do anything with that encounter, with that phenomenon, unless you are upright and facing right at it. Fighting doesn't help. You can't fix other people. But being there, upright. Interesting. Well, why do you feel that way? And not holding on to your own egocentric idea of right and wrong, that black and white. Just being there with that person without trying to fix them is a very, very profound, very practical way of practicing Zen, practicing the Buddha way. In fact, that's cultivating a Buddha mind rather than the small mind of, yeah, but you have to be compassionate. What about people's feelings? Well, actually, you know what? Letting that go too is much closer to making Buddha happen in the world than fighting for compassion.
Thank you. Follow-up question though.
Yes.
That's okay. Okay. So in that situation, that's kind of more of a situation that you are thrust into without intention. But we have control over a lot of the aspects of our lives. And isn't it kind of rooted in delusion if you think you must make yourself uncomfortable in order to practice? So then if you're not uncomfortable, you should just be fine in your comfort, right?
Don't run away. All you have to do is not run away, and you'll find yourself in those situations. What do you usually do when you're like outlandish situations are much easier to highlight, right? So like you go in to like a fast food restaurant and you're going to order some food, and there's a person who's ordering in front of you, and they start making a really, really weird fit, or they smell horrible. Like maybe that's a really good example. A bus. You can get on a bus, and there's somebody who hasn't taken a bath in a couple of months, and there's like a collection of urine on their body, on their clothes, and the body odor, and a whole lot of probably, very, very unhealthy skin conditions going on that produce foul odors. Oh, well, we're human too. That smell is actually the smell of us. We're just noticing it in a concentrated way that we usually wash off in a shower. It's putrid. It's revolting. In that situation, what do you usually do?
Try to avoid it.
Yeah. You get off the bus at the next stop. But actually, just being there and recognizing, for example, that stinky person, well, one, if you have some semblance of compassion, then you recognize, oh, that's a being in suffering. And then two, maybe more intimately than that, is that you recognize that that's not other than you. Your body smells like that too. You just wash it off all the time. The smell of death is natural. We have a revulsion to it. But actually, from time to time, in our living state, we have to deal with it. When your pet dies, when your family member dies, when your friend dies, if you're in, heaven forbid, you're in a really, really difficult place where a bomb goes off and a whole bunch of people die. You're there. You run maybe to protect yourself, but then at some point you have to go back and pick up the pieces because that's the right thing to do. And that's doing Zen. That's going right there. Being upright and doing the thing that you need to do. and not being revolted, like being more present than your own physical discomfort or awkwardness or or revulsion to some sensory experience, the smell of a body, or the awkwardness of a Karen in a restaurant or something like this. But also not very carefully not fighting to change what's outside you. Because we might want to say, hey, no, but you really should think this way, or maybe you should calm down. Actually, I'm sure you all know that saying that never works. Never, never, never. I've never seen it work in my lived experience. I've never seen anyone tell somebody who's escalated, hey, just relax. That doesn't do anything. Yeah. Madison?
Oh, thanks. I was just curious about like I, this balance of like showing up authentically and like we need the colors to really find ourselves, and
Mhm.
then the black and white doesn't really. So how does that fit into this, like all these rules and structure in a monastery, or like that feels very black and white again, but
Mhm.
I guess that's just kind of getting back to the ego death. It's like that going back and forth, or
Yeah.
how do you navigate that?
Um, a rule we could reimagine how the rules in I'll just speak of a Zen monastery and our
Hmm.
regular everyday people life. Those rules are like aspirations.
Oh,
For and we can aspire to keep them. For example, not killing is a really good. We tend to think of that
yeah.
one in sort of really black and white terms. There's either killing
Mhm.
or not killing. But actually, if you investigate that rule all the way to the bottom, it's not so simple as not taking life.
Mm.
Because when let's say, one time in the monastery, not while I was there, a few years before me, a bear came right into the gate of the monastery. And monks don't kill, of course. But we don't kill. So this bear comes ambling in, and it would make a big mess if one person met a bear, the person loses. So all the monks gather and stand shoulder to shoulder and yell and chase the bear out of the monastery, which is a non-violent way to deal with the bear. Uh, there's another monastery in a more rural area than where I was, where deer come and eat would eat the whole garden, right? And the monks won't kill the deer. The hunters know, and they'll protect. They know the deer are kind of crazy, and the temple needs that food because there's no other food. So the hunters would come and cull the deer. Cull is a nice way of saying kill the deer. And of course, the monks need food. Killing the deer and leaving it to rot is a waste. So the hunters, sort of not thinking, will just give the deer to the monastery. Here you are. I took care of this. I took the life of this thing for you. Now use it, use it to become your life. Eat this thing. Use the nutrition. Um, and then the monks have to clean and bleed and skin and prepare the deer. And it happened all the time. And then the monks have to deal with the bones and the leftover flesh parts and stuff like this. So there's a whole system to deal with this. Not killing doesn't mean um, not taking the life. Not killing means understanding that sometimes circumstances demand something of us, and we have to do it wholeheartedly in contrast to the way we think it has to go. It's a very complicated way to put this. For example, if someone gives you a gift in the monastery, I wandered off with animals. I'm going to go to another example here.
No,
The
I like that. Keep going.
with the um, you're in the monastery and the hunter gives you a gift. It's a big chunk of meat. Well, we're vegetarian. We're monks. We're supposed to be vegetarian. If we refuse the gift and say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't eat that, or we don't eat that, then the generosity of the person giving the gift gets damaged. You kill something in that person. That's also a place to observe do not kill. And there's also a place where your own body can become sick because you have I mean, like if you get sick, you get flu, you get COVID, something like this, you need some more kind of intense, dense nutrition sometimes. And maybe you have a iron deficiency or a vitamin deficiency, and kind of meat might be the place where you're going to get that the most accessible way. And so in order to protect your life, you have to consume that. In that way, it's not killing yourself. Depriving yourself too much becomes killing this way.
So the goal is
And
balance somehow.
the goal is balance. It's always exploring balance and recognizing that today is different from yesterday and tomorrow will be different from today. And there's one more place where we have to, more difficult than those examples, is not telling someone else what they should think. Because when you tell someone else that what they think is wrong, you're also killing something in them. That's one of the reasons that Buddhism doesn't have conversion as a rule. As actually, that's one of the really strict sort of philosophical points in Buddhism, is that we don't convert. Whatever you believe is what you believe, and that's okay. And Buddhism has a way of sort of annexing. What is the word? What is anybody remember what the Borg do in Star Trek? Assimilate. We assimilate things. So Buddhism has picked up all kinds of weird little deities and gods and spirits and stuff like this. They have nothing to do with Buddhism, actually. They're just little things that were left over in those cultural places. And Buddhism was like, we don't need to kill that. It just can be part of what we have. And Catholicism has done that with Santa Maria in South America, for example. Well, that belief was so strong in those native people that we can't just smush it out. It's not going to work. But in Buddhism, it's really specific. Like, you can't tell someone else what to think, and that's the Karen in a fast food restaurant or whatever, or your very awkward cousin or uncle who has a very strange other set of beliefs, and they're just they're running their mouth and making conflict. Well, if you are unmoved inside you, then no conflict arises. If you cause them to be an identity with you by just being quiet is a really good way to start. Oh, look, your drink is empty. Here, let me bring you another one. Or, oh, have you tasted the turkey? It's great. Change the subject to something contemporaneous and like bring your identities closer together. That's a way of not killing. Telling them, what? You're crazy. That's killing. So don't do that. Did those examples help? Yeah.
So much in so many ways. Yeah. Thank you.
Eshin-san,
Yes.
what about unintentional killing?
That's a good question. We often have recite a verse which says, all my past and harmful karma born from greed, hate, and delusion, I now fully avow. We are flawed. We just make mistakes because of delusion, because everything we do is fundamentally deluded from the base level. And there's not much we can do about that. To live, to eat, to breathe, to sleep, to spend time with friends, is on the basis of picking and choosing, which is fundamentally delusion. I like apples. I want an apple right now. I want an apple with peanut butter. That's picking and choosing. And delusion causes trouble. It causes unfortunate, unhelpful circumstances to arise and things to happen. Sometimes we do it. And just knowing that we do it and owning it, like, whoops, I'm sorry. You can say sorry. You can also not say sorry and just own it and just fall over and get up again. There are consequences sometimes if we make a mess, and we have to deal with those consequences. Sometimes that means that we lose a friendship or we lose a relationship because of something we did or something that they thought we did. And even telling them, no, I didn't do that, that might be killing something in them. So we just take it. Bald face. What did Emperor Wu have to do? Bodhidharma had a power, right? When he said, no merit. There is nothing holy in what you have done. Emperor Wu didn't have a choice but to just take it. That affront, that sort of offense to Emperor Wu's ego. Or, who are you? And Bodhidharma's like, I have no idea. That's also Bodhidharma taking it. So we can do that too. Whenever we make a mistake or something goes wrong, it's like, yeah, I did that. Whoops. And then when, the police officer writes you a ticket or your partner gets really, really angry at you and yells, and you just say, I'm here. I'm upright. I'm facing right at you. This consequence will be here. And just be there for that.
And second question, when we recite this all my twisted karma, it's usually on moon day, full moon day, or it can be done anytime.
Anytime. We in ceremonial practice, it happens sometimes before, like, for example, before a Dharma talk, before listening to a teacher. That's a time when it gets recited. There are also times when we begin to study. If we open up Shobogenzo or some other sutra or any kind of study, if you're just trying to memorize the Heart Sutra or something, before you do it, all my past and harmful karma born from greed, hate, and delusion, I now fully avow. We say it 3 times and then do the thing. Anytime is fine. So with that, my time has grown short. And is everyone okay? More to come.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bodhidharma is a great example to hold in how we live our lives, and I'll speak lots more about him. He's one of my favorites. So,
Awesome.
well, welcome to the Bodhidharma Club.
Thank you, Eshin. Appreciate you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.